Hi, everyone. Hey, it's still pollen season here, so thank you in advance for your understanding with how I sound and sips of tea to keep me going. Today, I'm addressing a couple of your responses to a Conscious Women survey that I sent out. When it comes to what you're concerned about regarding leadership around the world, here's the first data point for us to explore. 74% of you said there's a lack of accountability in leadership. But what if that's not the actual problem? What if the real problem is something much deeper and, quite frankly, far more dangerous? If we look around the world, we know what happens. When our global leaders use their power to get their own desires met at the expense of others, what I would call narcissistic leadership, people suffer terribly. If we stop holding leaders accountable, we start losing our humanity. Accountability isn't just a leadership skill, it's a spiritual practice. It's a principle, a quality, a virtue that should come with leadership. A good leader wants to be accountable because you know you will be a better leader when you are. And when our leaders don't hold themselves accountable, then it's up to us. Let me show you a simple, beautiful, caring way in which this can work in our own lives. Before I started She Rising Academy, I asked a sister friend to help me stay in my center and stay at my best by telling me when I needed to hold myself accountable for a decision or behavior that could cause significant harm to others. And she did it one day. It's true. I was complaining about my husband, and she told me I'd been complaining about him far too long, and I had the same complaint about men I'd been with prior to him. She told me I needed to hold this issue in compassion and let it heal. So I decided to argue with her about how this time was different, right? But I finally realized she was right. My ego was clouding my ability to see what was really happening. But when I got still in self-compassion, I could see where a certain, in fact, a very specific quality of love had been missing from my life. And really, within just a few quiet, self-compassionate meditations, that underlying need was fulfilled. Now, if you're curious about how I take myself into self-compassion, you'll find a link below the subscribe button where you can download my free holding meditation and try it out for yourself. In my experience, I needed to take responsibility for an issue that had been in my relationships with men for a long time. My spiritual sister did exactly what I asked her to do: lovingly hold me accountable. Now, clearly, I'm not perfect. No leader is. I'm also aware that when anyone chooses to accept leadership in any form, that can be leadership as a mother or a father or a business owner or any kind of creator that supports others, you're going to hit your edges. If you're stretching into greater service, you are going to hit your limits. You're going to bump up against your ego, the part of your ego that doesn't want to admit when you're off. It's the moment when you're so busy blaming someone else that you can't see how you've betrayed yourself, how you've set it up, and how you've betrayed others in the process. Because you're trying to get what you want, but in a disoriented way. In other words, like my complaints about my husband, I was stroking my ego, my desire to be right at his expense. So to make sure that I continue to be respectful, the loving person I want to be, I have an accountability partner. In fact, I have two. We need to be able to see when we are bumping up against our own narcissistic edges from a spiritual point of view. And this is how I see narcissism from a spiritual perspective. It's getting what I want at your expense. We all have some of that in us. It's when that becomes a mantra for our lives that we're causing grave harm. And some of us here are conscious leaders. We're not here to cause harm. We're here to restore balance. And if you're curious to learn more about this concept of conscious balance and where narcissism and codependence play together, check out my video, When Power Loses Love. I talk about how narcissism is a spiritual disorientation from healthy, loving, young, masculine energy. That disorientation is power without love. And we can see this play out in political leadership in our world today. So back to the survey, another data point. 65% said they are seeing narcissistic abuse in leadership. When it's happening with a leader, those of us that help to put that individual into office can end up, or into power, any form of power. Those of us that helped can end up feeling betrayed. Because with narcissistic leadership, you've been told exactly what you wanted to hear. But that doesn't mean the leader has any intention of following through. Remember, the spiritual energy behind distorted masculine energy is power without love and a tendency to make decisions for myself and my own benefit at the expense of others. Now, we'll talk more about how to heal that betrayal in an upcoming video. So, when someone is choosing to be balanced in their leadership approach, you hold yourself accountable. And you allow yourself to be held accountable. In sacred practice, that works like this, by people you love and trust who will be both honest and compassionate with you. When you're self-accountable, you're more inclined to tell the truth, to make decisions that you and the majority of people you serve will respect. And you look toward a future for everyone, not just for your immediate gratification. Things like gaslighting and saving face, which we see all too often in leadership today, can't exist when you hold yourself accountable. Because you tell the truth when you screw up. Because you know that builds trust. Because you care about how your decisions affect others. You stop shaming and blaming the way I was, because you don't want to project your mistakes onto other people. You don't want to make other people accountable for your choices and decisions. When I'm looking at the leaders I want to see in this world, politically, spiritually, socially, I ask myself one very simple question, and then I watch very carefully. This is what I ask. Do they consistently walk their talk? I know, it's so simple, isn't it? But it's so powerful. Or are they blaming, shaming, exaggerating, lying, stealing, manipulating? You get the gist. Because if they're not self-honest and accountable with themselves, right? They're not being honest with themselves. They are not going to be honest and accountable to me. There are behaviors like this that we've come to accept as somehow normal in politics, and they're not really normal at all. They are masculine energies separated from love. So when I'm looking for a leader, I don't expect to agree on every issue. I'm looking at their character. Is their foundation anchored in love for themselves and others? Does that love include compassion, respect, self-reflection, humility, honesty, and of course, self-accountability? for all our sakes. I'd like to suggest we try this for just a moment. If you stripped away politics, opinions, and agendas, what qualities would a truly trustworthy leader have? And share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe and follow for more. Know, please know, that I love you and honor all the ways in which you are bringing love and compassion into this world. Until next time.